What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Huddle, your weekly playbook helping you gain forward progress in your flooring career. Simply put, we're here to help you win. To all our new viewers, welcome to the team. Today's episode is sponsored by Divergent Adhesives and NAFCT. They are having an event in October from the 20th, I believe, through the 24th in Columbus, Ohio. Is that right, Daniel?
Yes, sir. Over at America's
America's
Floor
Floor
Source,
Source.
they've
Yeah.
got a they've got an amazing setup over there, man. If you haven't been out there to just like take a look at what they got going on, it's worth the trip.
Well, I'll definitely have to get out there. I might go to this event, to be honest with you. Um, and maybe even bring a guy or two. Have to see what we can hook up. Today's topic: hard surface horizons, flooring trends, and industry highlights with Scott Rozmus. Is that right? I
That's
asked you
right.
how to say it, and then I
Yeah,
just
that's right.
just beat
Always
it up.
butchered it. Just butchered
In
it.
Poland, they say
Just
Rozmus,
butchered
so
it.
you're correct in two lands. So.
Awesome. Well, as I said, Scott, we really appreciate you joining us today, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm the president and CEO of Floor Star Sales, headquartered in Romeoville, Illinois, and our company is a hard surface floor covering distributor operating primarily in the upper Midwestern United States. I'm in my 25th year here at Floor Star. It's a family-owned business, and my father-in-law is the founder of the business. We have approximately 150 employees consolidated with our subsidiaries. Um, and excited to be here and happy to have an opportunity to be on the show.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you. We love these episodes when we can tap into somebody's mind a little bit. That's in a different part of the business than we are. I'm in the commercial floor covering world, and I own a piece of software, and it's based around labor in the flooring. And these guys are commercial flooring savants, and so we're always in the application and purchasing and chasing around jobs and estimating, and so we come from that perspective a lot, and it's really nice to have a different perspective, especially on hard surface topics, because we'd love to have more of that. Can you tell me at your distributorship? It's a full-on distributorship in the upper northeast, you said?
Upper Midwest, so 10
Upper
states.
Midwest.
Yeah, basically Big 10, Big 12 if you're a sports fan, that
Okay,
area of the country. Yeah.
gotcha. And primarily hard surface, or do you kind of play in?
99% hard surface, yes.
Awesome. You want to uh, mention a few of the brands you carry?
Yeah, so brands that folks probably have heard of would be, Armstrong and Tarkett, Johnsonite, Bruce. Those are, major brands. We also have in-house, which is a phenomenal product line out of Germany. Ardex, Sika, Henry's on the supply
Got all
side.
the stuff we use.
Yeah, Tago. Yeah, I mean, we're blessed with some of the strongest brands in the country, and
That's a good lineup.
distribute those. Yeah.
Is the bulk of your dealers, are they commercial, residential, or is it pretty even?
Well, there's a mix. There's a really healthy mix, and so that's really good for the business. We're never doing quite as well as some of our peers that focus on segments, but we tend to kind of average out, because when one area is really busy, another area might be slow, but there's always some part of the business that's busier, which is a good thing.
Yeah, so you don't have those big high and low dips, is what you're
Correct.
saying.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Right, like in the commercial world, we see everything just like taking off, and then you see it start dwindling down, and it's like, all right, I guess we're gonna do a little bit of residential now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something, an example of that was when everybody went through COVID. So when COVID started and everything shut down, there was a commercial backlog that continued because a lot of that was considered essential because it was healthcare
Hmm.
related. So that was very helpful for the business, and then that got sucked up. So, guys like Daniel and Jose probably were scrambling, where's the next work going to come from? And we were too, but then as the country opened up, the residential remodeling work was healthy. And so, that helped us because we were segmented into both.
Yeah, I think we did a lot. We do a lot of hospital work, so it was, and at the time that COVID happened, we were actually in the process of doing a brand new hospital, and then it let us focus on that stuff, so we didn't really have to scramble too
Great.
much. It was nice, but then I think a lot of it was more of the DIY stuff. Everyone was calling, like they would call us for just product, like, hey, do you have some product that we can sell? Because everyone is basically out, right? All the big box stores were selling things like crazy because everyone just had
People
free
didn't have
time. So what are you
nothing to
gonna do?
do but
Yeah.
home improvement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we experienced a little bit different because we had two massive. We also do a ton of hospital work, but new and remodel at our two major hospitals here. And we were in the middle of like wings of the hospital, and so they shut our projects down. We had
Oh, really?
about $2.5 million worth of work get shut down because of they didn't want anybody in the hospital because it was an operating hospital.
Okay.
And so they were like, you're riding the same elevators. A couple people got COVID during the transition time. And so they decided to shut those down and postpone them. So we were scrambling, did some other work that we probably normally wouldn't have done
Yeah.
to start filling some gaps. So that's good. Well, we're here today to talk about like what you see coming down the pipe, just kind of some of your insights about where both, since you have such a healthy mix, and the reason I asked was to ask you, both sides of the coin. What are you seeing in commercial? What kind of new products maybe we don't know about yet? Our reps haven't gotten out to us, but they're talking to you guys about it at the distributor level. And also what you see in the residential world. What's kind of kicking hot?
Sure. So I'll start with the commercial. It's probably a little more familiar to the team here. So what are the big trends there? Uh, Centers around technology that creates hard surface one, PVC-free. So kind of a health conscious focus there. That's driven by a variety of honestly governmental entities asking for and demanding that. So it's kind of a very big trend in Europe. It's a big trend out on the West Coast with some healthcare systems and things like that, where designers and architects and end users are looking for that certainly as an option. So that certainly is a trend. Um, LVT in hard surface commercial continues to be a popular trend because of the versatility it provides in terms of style and design. And so, we just see that continuing as well. At the same time, there's kind of resurgence in VCT, which is kind of a tried and true product. People may consider that a boring product, but it performs, and it's a very reliable product. And most of it's made in North America, including a bunch that's made here in Illinois, where we are. So, there's good supply chain for that product as well. We've seen
Was there some backlog for that product since it kind of left the market a little bit? A lot of big players quit making it, and then Armstrong had their problem, and so that went like south for a while. I know a lot of designers around the Midwest here, Wichita, Kansas City area, shied away. They were moving away from VCT anyway, just because of the LVT story of not having to wax and the annual maintenance. But not having any available is another big reason to stop specifying it.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things, Paul, to that. So first, there was a period where there was some uncertainty in the marketplace. So Tarkett bought a plant in Mexico. They made an acquisition to be able to develop a food chip product that's a little bit better quality. So there was a transition there, and then at the same time, relatively speaking, within a year of that, Armstrong declared bankruptcy, and so company AHF bought the assets and the brand, and in that acquisition acquired the factory in Kankakee, Illinois, where Armstrong VCT is made. So there was a period of uncertainty in the marketplace, but that was settled out 3 years ago, and I think that since then we've seen the category resurge because there is certainty and quality, reliability of supply. You made a comment about the maintenance and so forth, so it's very interesting. And I don't know if you guys encounter this with your clients, but sometimes this LVT maintenance story is sold to an end user, such as a school. Oh, you don't have to strip, you don't have to polish. The maintenance crews still come in and strip and polish. There's still that cost. And so that's kind of a misnomer when it comes to VCT relative to LVT. That there's this huge maintenance delta. In reality, that's not really the case because there's a certain amount of maintaining of a floor that's necessary in a commercial space, or any floor is going to look ugly and unattractive. So there's truth to that. Don't get me wrong, and there's some chemicals that are used in maintenance that sometimes people don't want being used to maintain certain types of floors. But by and large, if you have a commercial space and you have a floor, you got to take care of it. You got to clean it. You got to mop it. You got to work on it. So
yeah, I think the annual strip and rewax is the main thing, but the delta is not as big as when I think we all seen the charts when LVT kind of first hit the market in a big way, where multiple manufacturers, I mean, it's been around for many, many, many years, but when everybody and their brother has an LVT now, as that started to happen, you got those charts showing you, well, annual maintenance at this dollar figure. Truth is that they're not figuring hardly any maintenance for theirs was the
correct.
problem for the LVT side. And I'm a big LVT fan, but I also know what you just said, and Daniel was shaking his head like, yeah, when the thing that we found, even with like quartz flooring that doesn't necessarily have to be waxed either, is when you have a janitorial I'll say community that has done things the same way for 30 years, and then you think they're just going to switch overnight and stop doing that. I can't count how many square feet of LVT is waxed right now, because
You're absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right. The other thing too that sometimes is lost in the story is the VCT floors last a long time if they're properly maintained, and so there's a value to the school district, let's say, or the office complex, or the society in the fact that that flooring is staying down and isn't getting ripped out and thrown in a landfill or things like that too. So there's an equation that has a lot of elements to it that people I think need to look at. Ultimately, there's a lot of reasons that one or another variety of flooring may be a correct choice for a particular end user at a particular time, but sometimes folks are kind of given boogeyman stories that aren't really accurate if you ask them some questions.
yeah. Yeah, and there's certainly, if you want your LVT staying looking nice, you got to have a good maintenance program. Cleaning mainly. You don't have to wax it. I mean, I've got clients that have had it down for 10, 15 years, and they maintain it well, and it looks wonderful. But to think that you don't have to maintain it in some manner, one of my clients uses an ionized water, and so he's buying things too to keep his LVT looking as sharp as possible. And that's a church, so they want it to look great.
You can refinish the LVT now too, so
never strip, and they've come out with what's that other one? Never strip, and there's another one that can wax LVT or seal LVT or whatever. The big problem I found with LVT, and I love the product, and there's a lot of good products, but subpar products, the biggest problem I have found is the gapping on the lower cost. If you start to get an LVT that's cost of VCT, we found that gapping, I don't like, you can glue it. First off, just my inspector friends out there, LVT is supposed to be dimensionally stable, so it shouldn't matter about the adhesive. You should be able to lay that floor without adhesive and it not gap. It's supposed to be dimensionally stable, put in correct conditions, obviously. But that being said, the gapping and all that, well, VCT will gap on you too. But if it's properly waxed, and maintained, that wax actually holds that VCT more into a monolithic sheet. We've got a grocery chain that we did VCT for years for, and they would wax that stuff 24 hours afterwards, 5 coats, and they put a coat on. They would strip a coat and put a coat on every month. I mean, they were always maintaining it. But that LVT, the joints, except for concrete movement or building movement, those joints looked like the day we installed it, because that wax helps hold it all together.
Yeah,
Just a little sales pitch for the
Sure.
VCT dudes out there.
Hey, you know what?
Product. It's a real
VCT
good
separates
product.
installers, man.
Yeah.
It's a good product. So that's some of the trends on the commercial side, and we can delve into that a little bit more depending on what else you want to talk about. But on the residential side, I wanted to also answer your question, Paul. So what we're seeing there is there's a trend with a lot of interest in hardwood flooring. It's had a resurgence. Natural product adds value to the home. There's a lot of versatility with some style and design that comes with hardwood flooring. So that's been an interesting trend. The market, I think, went through a phase where there was an obsession with SPC waterproof flooring, product that provided some solutions, but perhaps was oversold market wide, in total, to folks where there was a perception that it was a problem-free product. And the reality is, anything that you walk on, roll stuff on, have pets on, live on, operate on, and then expect to have a design and fashion element is going to have problems, because it's supposed to perform and look good, and that's a challenge. So,
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to ask you. We noticed a big trend around here where upper end homes were putting this stuff in, and I'm personally on the market for a new home, and so been looking, and I almost just turn around, walk out if I walk on LVT in a house that I'm going to buy. It seems like they got, like, I seen $1 million plus homes even having SPC put in throughout the house. Is that trend going more back towards where it belongs in the hardwood area or tile, that kind of thing?
It depends on the builder, the community, subdivisions, even different builders have different strategies. I mean, they're running businesses too, and if you look at the earnings of some of the publicly traded builders, they seem to do quite well. It's very interesting to see what product that we might sell a client ends up kind of going to the consumer at once the builder is done with it. But with that said, I think one of the reasons for the trend you saw, Paul, was that product category, the SPC category, did lend itself to having installations with very large expanses without a need for moldings. And folks often don't like seeing T-moldings in doorways. It breaks up the flow of the floor. But sometimes, especially in the past, they're necessary for that product to be able to expand and contract and perform, so that in the end, it did what the consumer or the owner of the space felt it was going to do. So it was a necessary evil. So here comes a product category where someone says, you don't need moldings, and the refrigerator or dishwasher can flood and nothing's going to happen, and so on and so forth. So it got a lot of traction within a lot of marketplaces. And it was an interesting product to builders in part because it suggested that it would eliminate disappointed customers, callbacks, and so on. So that's why, it was used, and everybody in the industry was participating in that category to some degree.
Oh yeah.
And then you just look back, like we talked about, like COVID and the DIY stuff and everything, and then just people, the installers not knowing what you can and can't go over, right? So I seen this picture on Facebook the other day, so I'm gonna share it because this hits home because there's so many installers that say, "Oh no, we
Oh,
can just go over everything with it," and then they go over some slatted hardwood, and then you don't realize that you're essentially creating a vapor barrier, and then that moisture has nowhere to go, so it's gonna go into the wood that's underneath, make it
And swell
buckle,
it.
and then
Yeah.
Right.
it's gasping for air, brother. That's what they wanted. And it's the part about an installer. And you say you're an installer, you're selling out of a store, and you're trying to save the client money. So you don't do all the research, and this is the result that happens when you don't know. You don't want to tell them because you feel bad that, hey, we should encapsulate this. We should do some kind of underlayment, some kind. We have to put something between this LVP and your existing wood substrate. Otherwise, failure is imminent. It's hard to say that to a client who's already
Well, yeah,
saying,
because you sold them on a cheaper product and you had $2.50
right.
a foot in underlayment, and now you're getting really close to the hardwood cost. And it's like, I also, what do you think, any of you guys actually, but the the selling of it that you mentioned, Scott, kind of oversold that product. That was partially from the installation standpoint too, that anybody can do it. Like, it just, you don't need to worry about subfloor prep, like going over stuff. That's where a lot of the failures I see happen, is that people just don't understand that it's a system that has to, and a system has to have a good foundation. And so many people just, even installers who maybe did soft surfaces and jumped into it without any training or any formal industry support in that way. They didn't go get trained. They just, hey, this stuff clicks together. It's simple, and I use chop saw for it.
Yeah, that's
Anybody
great.
can put Legos together, but I'm not going to sit there and go to Legoland and go buy all those little models and say that I'm putting those together. Right? Like I could do this. No, I have to read the directions to glue one piece at a time.
Well, that's you.
Right.
Oh, but Jose is right though, and you make a great point. Well, Jose is right. One of the challenges that arose is that you do have a product that, by and large, would click and lock together. And what was lost a little bit in the noise is that there are a variety of locking systems that are on the marketplace. There's some variants, but there's a couple of competing models that are patented, and then there's variants of those models. And the reality is that the techniques to lock them together are a little different in terms of, do you tap it? And what does tap mean? Because some people want to pound, and hit, and what is angle? And so there were some nuances there. And to Jose's point, if people were educated and went through the right process, these products all should perform and will perform. But what happened with some of them, and then the manufacturers, because there's numerous people getting in this business as it ramped up, and to make this product didn't require a substantial investment on the manufacturing part relative to other products. So you had a lot of overseas manufacturers jump in, start competing, and what do you do to take price out? You take out the quality of the core,
Mm-hmm.
product thinner, and what you do is you set up the installer for trouble when they put something in, and maybe they're not versed in this locking system or that, because they all seem to be the same, but they're not. There could be a tendency to damage, especially end joints, and that would manifest itself 18 months later, 2 years later. And so you have people that are unhappy now with the product. And what's sad is there's some really good products out there, and a lot of retailers are shying away from the whole category And again, it's because people don't want to educate themselves on what caused these failures, how do we prevent them in the future, and how do we use this product category in the right way to add value to people, but not oversell it.
And
And
like you said,
that's
the
why you get involved, and when you say get involved, that's why we all have to have a a real passion for training. And NAFCT, I mentioned it early on. They're having an event in Columbus, Ohio, on October 20th, and it's at the America Floor Source. The That's going to be that's heat welding and flash coving, right, Daniel?
Yep.
But NAFCT also teaches proper techniques for installing glue down LVP and LVT, click,
Rigid core. Yeah.
all of it. And
And
and and you have training entities out there that you can get involved with. For all my installers who watch this, get involved. I hate even saying get involved. Go get trained. You're a professional. Reach out to the NAFCT, reach out to CFI, reach out to, AFT, any of them. But I tell you, NAFCT has some of the best people who are going to teach you this particular category of flooring.
I mean, just the networking aspect, and like Scott was saying, the thinner you go, and then different locking mechanisms. You think about the locking mechanism in general, and the thinner you go, the less it has to lock into itself, right? And you're essentially looking at like a 1 millimeter on each side that is trying to lock into, and then it just makes it that much easier to break over time.
Yeah.
Well, and the tongues break on that. That's what took Wilson out of the flooring business, was when they made that first commercial floater LVP. We actually did that product at a hospital here, and I can't. They're out of business, so I'm not. That part of their business is gone, so I'm not too worried about talking about it. But multiple areas the tongue had broken off, and took just the slightest bit of flex. And even if you were within, but they sold the product, and this is going back to how manufacturers present their products that I think can cause us some trouble. But they pose their product as being able to bridge things up to, I can't remember, but further than it could. Obviously, I think it was a 1/4 inch. Well, that type of flex ended up breaking the tongue, and then you just have this happening with your plank. So yeah, there's been a lot of challenges through there, and I'm glad to see that people are at least becoming more aware that these difficulties are out there, and it's nothing to play with. Like, you really, unless you are a avid DIYer and you don't care, I would tell you to do your own house if you want to, but as long as you understand the risks of doing it on your own. Because I guarantee you, if the floor fails, inspectors 99% of the time will find out what you did not do right, and it's likely that an install issue happened somewhere.
You made a point earlier as well, about the challenge that the installation community has, explaining that there's a way to do the job correctly, the way to do it right, but it's going to add cost because they may not have sold the product. You've got to put it in now, and so you've got a scenario where it's typical, 3/16 and 10, right? I don't know a lot of subfloors that are within that spec. So now you've got a really thin product. If that subfloor is not, patched, if it's not level, that product is going to be susceptible to having an issue, especially if it's so thin that there's any damage to the locking mechanism when it's put in, and then they hang the installer on that, and at the end of the day, yes, it was installed by somebody that maybe could or should have known better, or could or should have done something differently. But sometimes products, while not being designed effectively, they're not user friendly. And I've had many times in my career where the installation community pushes back on a product's difficulty, and individually difficult to change the world, but collectively, retailers and contractors hear the message, and they will shy away from a product that is causing problems. So I certainly would encourage people not to be shy about providing legitimate feedback, because I want to know that as a distributor. I don't want to put product in the channel that folks don't like to install, because at the end of the day, that product isn't going to be successful long term. And so that feedback is helpful and should be desired. And if somebody doesn't want to hear that, that's something maybe to question about whether you want to get products from them if they don't want to hear what the challenges are, how they can make them better, and so on.
So we have a
Yeah,
question
we've had a few podcasts where we have discussed the disconnect between salesman and installer and what gets sold versus how the installer feels kind of shoehorned into doing it a certain way because that's what was sold. But really what should happen is over here. And I know that will launch the comment sections a lot of times because installers hate being in that position. I'm an installer by trade. We don't like being forced into doing it incorrect, and then if there's a callback, it's back on us. So there's this dichotomy where dealers and retailers have to make sure that they're consulting with their installers, particularly on these kind of susceptible floors, and make sure that you're discussing these items with them, involve them in part of your sales process. In fact, if you have a really talented installation team, you should be selling based on the level of quality that you are from installation, because we all know the product looks great on the rack, but the real value doesn't even get recognized until somebody puts their hands on it and does it right.
So
Daniel was getting ready to bring up this comment,
but I'm going to get to that in a second. Since we are talking about the plank and everything, I did want to get with Scott on the resurgence of laminate. Like, what do you see there? Because I've been hearing everyone talk about just going back to laminate. Like, I'm not even doing LVP anymore.
I don't even know why.
I'm only selling
questions
laminate.
Down.
Yeah. So I appreciate that question. There's a few reasons for that trend, and that is an accurate trend. Laminate is becoming more popular again. There was a period when I first started in the industry in the early 2000s. It was the alternative hard surface product. It was the hottest product. You had wood and laminate. So that's when Wilson Art was super popular. We were a huge distributor for them. And then what happened in that category was there were a lot of good suppliers, but the home centers got involved in that category in a big way. And no disrespect to them, but one of the things that they promote is price. When you sell something for a low price, you often take the quality out, and there were variants in quality that didn't perform as the category as people had expected it to, based on brands like Virgo, Wilson Art, and so forth. And so it became less popular. And one of challenges that laminate always had historically is that it has like a wood fiber core. And so the product would be susceptible to water. If water sat on it for even a short amount of time, a few hours, you could have the seams peak, and it might be irreversible. And so, like that, you'd have failures. The floor would expand. It was a floating floor. So if it got moisture in it, it could expand into that expansion space and fail. Not dissimilar to the picture Daniel showed. Okay, that may be a different type of failure, but the floors would look like that. So people shied away. Still sold a lot of it, but it diminished. It's resurged. Why? Manufacturers have developed enhanced core technology. And so now you have core material that can withstand lifestyle moisture exposure. By that, I mean the dishwasher, the fridge, the dog dish. As long as someone cleans it up, as long as someone isn't like wet mopping that floor, which people used to do as well. There's maintenance challenges back in the day. Today's laminates really stand up if they're from a reputable supplier. The other thing about laminate that sets it apart from, let's say, SPC is they're able to print the product. They're able to manufacture the visual layer. It's got more depth to it. It's more striking. And so it's a little bit of a stronger design element as an overall category. I mean, you could have very beautiful LVT SPC and very ugly laminate, because it depends where you are in the quality spectrum. But if you take an average laminate and an average LVT product, someone could make the laminate look more beautiful and more realistic. There's more you could do with it, right? So there's all these features about laminate that always lent itself to being an alternative to hardwood flooring for people with either budget or lifestyle issues back in the day. those attributes remain. And in the meantime, the industry has figured out how to enhance the core. So you're away for the weekend, your refrigerator overflows, your floor probably will be okay. If you have the right quality floor with today's core technology. If you get water in your basement, there's an inch of water. That's a whole different, that's
Yeah.
a different
Or
universe.
your toilet overflows and
Yeah,
gets around
yeah.
the edges and gets underneath the product, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
But it's a great I mean, laminate's a great product, and it is coming back. You've had some, the industry leaders have done a great job. Mohawk has marketed their product. It's Revwood's a laminate product, and a lot of people don't even realize that. They're buying it based on how it looks and how it's going to perform. And what's true of that product is true of a lot of the competitive products in the category, but they've done a good job positioning it, to kind of enhance the perceived value.
Yeah, they've
also-
got some really good marketing over there at Mohawk.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot
And
of money.
That's where I
A
was
lot
going
of
to go
money.
with some of that.
Provide a lot of marketing. So
That's where I was going to go with some of that. A lot of purchases are based off of how well the marketing is. And you had mentioned the Revwood, and you're right. Their displays are a little bit better. The material seems to be a little more, it's thicker than your standard laminate or SPCs or rigid cores. So it appears to have a larger value than it might, I guess, in the long term. Now, if you tell somebody it's a laminate, they're going to say, look how thick that is. There's no way that's a laminate. What is that? 12 millimeter? What is that? And you're right. Presentation, accompanied with marketing, goes a long way.
Well, and add a good installer to that mix, and you actually can have a really nice floor put in.
100%.
You know, Kevin brought,
yeah.
we were, I know that Daniel was trying to get this one out
Sure.
there. Kevin asked, what are the benefits of PVC-free flooring, and how will this help with dimensional stability issues?
Yeah. So PVC-free is more related to the health aspects of the flooring, although there is a related story on dimensional stability as well there. So PVC is polyvinyl chloride. There is data out there that associates polyvinyl chloride with bad health outcomes for people sometimes, right? So you could do the research online. I want to be careful about making legal statements and so forth and so on.
Sure.
But PVC is not considered a healthy chemical. So particularly in health-related industries or people that have allergies, asthma, things like that, they're looking for alternatives, looking for very healthy floors. So a PVC-free floor is on average a healthier floor to some than a PVC floor because it doesn't have polyvinyl chloride in it. And if you think polyvinyl chloride is bad, or if it is bad, PVC floor doesn't have it. With that said, to Kevin's question, there are products out there. So, for example, there's a product from In-House. People can research it. It's called Icon. There's a sister product called Gallery. It's made with a substance called ceramide, so it's ceramic powder. And the whole product is made out of this powder. They print on it, so there's nothing that can delaminate. The powder is inert, and then it's combined with polypropylene, which is a healthier plastic, provides flexibility. It comes out of Germany, but that plastic, as made in Germany, it meets the German standards for toys. It's 25% post-consumer, and it's also dimensionally stable. It's an inert product. I mean, it's a 3-season room product. You can go 100 feet by 100 feet without transitions with that product. So their goal was to make it PVC free. As a byproduct of how this particular manufacturer made it, they have a massive, like an awesomely dimensionally stable product. But just because something's PVC free doesn't automatically mean it's dimensionally stable, if that answers the viewer's question.
I think that's where like that question lies, right? Because once you just call something PVC free, it can really be made of anything else.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up.
Flooring is
There's also
PVC,
right.
Yeah.
PVC free hardwood flooring.
Yeah, because really where PVC is typically going to be found is in a vinyl product, and it's a historic component of the manufacturing process. I am not a manufacturer, but as time evolves and as manufacturing techniques change, all these engineers that graduate from schools, they find alternate materials that will achieve the same or better performance without having some of the maybe adverse effects or challenges that historic components might have. And that's how you get products like the product I talked about. There's a lot of sheet goods, commercial sheet that's coming out that's PVC free as well.
And a lot of what they call bio-based or, polyurethane homogeneous tile in the commercial world.
Mhm.
And, in the commercial side, I think architects and owners like this idea of cradle to grave or cradle to cradle kind of stuff that you get with the bio-based tiles and such. And a lot of healthcare has it in it. We've got a large hospital. We're doing a large sum of some bio-based LVT, I would say, or bio-based vinyl tile, I guess would be the more appropriate way to say it. But it's got oils and all this other stuff in it. So it's like, what is the stuff made of? And then you get into adhesives and how those play in with all of this. I've been through my share of adhesive issues over the years. And by the way, shout out to Divergent Adhesives again, one of our sponsors for this episode. High quality adhesives that meet today's demanding standards. Go check out Divergent. That being said, a lot of these new products, we used to take the stance of like, well, you can't tell me what adhesive to use. That's what, as a commercial contractor, man, we've almost exclusively just went with whatever the manufacturer's adhesive is anymore. We lose some margin because of that, because we would buy truckloads of adhesive for your pressure sensitive, or back in the day, the thin spread for the VCT or such. But now with all these different manufacturing methods, and I would say I try to stay up pretty well on the new stuff, but man, I can't even keep up with it. And I just relinquish to buy the manufacturer's provided adhesive for that product.
Yeah, that's a smart policy to avoid issues if there's ever a problem. It takes a question off the table if you use the supplier's adhesive. If someone has a go-to adhesive that they know, love, and trust, my advice for your listeners would be, if they want to use something, particularly on a larger job, a commercial job that is not the branded adhesive with the flooring, you can always ask the manufacturer if they'll sign off on that. A lot of them will, if it's a reputable adhesive. Sometimes they won't for whatever reason. It's case by case, but that's another angle that you could consider. If it's a particularly large project, there may be an adhesive that someone has used and is comfortable with, that they believe should work based on its formulation relative to the manufacturer's. I would either use the manufacturer's adhesive or have them sign off on that, because if there's a claim, that's one finger pointing that can't occur then.
Yeah, it's that. And I mean, we try to stay up on it. I know Daniel and Jose do as well, but I mean, we're not chemists. And at the end of the day, reading through a sheet, a MSDS sheet for an adhesive, trying to figure out if it'll work. Yeah, you can take those I don't know, calculated risks, and we've done it. We still have stocked pressure sensitive adhesive for your day in, day out kind of thing. But if you're dealing particularly in this new realm what we were just talking about with PVC free bio-based tiles, this stuff, certain rubber flooring companies, utilizing their rubber flooring adhesive, I think it's just a safer bet than going out on your own. And because we just don't know. I mean, rubber, it's rubber is rubber, but you get into some of these other alternatives to LVT nowadays, And it's like you almost have to be a chemist to be able to make that call. And so be very careful is my cautionary tale to my
Yeah, and
my installer friends out there.
I mean, we were
You're
talking
right.
to Robert last week, and that's what he said. You know, installers need to know this stuff, and we basically need to be on level with these chemists and scientists, and you need to know about
Or at least
concrete, you need
understand
to know
how to
about
read it.
wood, moisture. It's a lot when all the fingers are pointing at you at the end of the day.
That's right. Yeah. And
First, they
part
need
of
to
the
figure
reason,
out
yeah,
what happens if it fails, right?
yeah,
If no one's ever being held accountable for the failures because of a system that they're being told to use from a flooring contractor, they're never going to learn. But and they can change their name and file a new DBA if they're a proprietor. They can dodge a bullet, but it's integrity. How much integrity do you have? Are you
You
going
don't
to
want
stand
that.
behind that?
You don't want that bang on your reputation.
Right.
What was you saying, Scott?
I was going to say, part of the reason that there's, I guess, a push to use that recommender, the branded adhesive, responsible manufacturers, they do test it. They do test it to make sure it's compatible with the flooring. So that is, a valid reason. It's not just the reason you stay out of trouble is they've tested and pre-approved it. That's why I made the reference to, you could always ask the supplier if there's a different adhesive you want to use, because many times the manufacturer of the flooring isn't actually manufacturing the branded adhesive that goes with their flooring. It has the same brand, but an adhesive focused manufacturer is making that and then just putting it under the manufacturer's label, which means there may be an alternate out there in the universe that people know about but won't publish that is acceptable because it's a very similar or the same formula. Again, I'm not on the inside of the manufacturer. I'm not saying it's identical, but I can say that over 25 years, we've had suppliers approve adhesives on big projects that weren't theirs, but they might want to test it. They might want to go through a process. So you have to build that into the timeline as well if that's a route someone wants to go.
Yeah, and you can fight that. A lot of them, Kevin brings this exact point up about, is it even legal for them to make you use their private label? I mean, the large manufacturers, your Parabon, your Royal Adhesives and your Mapes and such, they make most of the adhesives for everybody, but they will specially make it. I mean, I have literally called Mape to find an alternative to a manufacturer's stuff, and they're like, we can't sell that.
Yeah.
We do make it, but I can't sell that. And whether it's legal or not, Kevin, I would say is not what I'm talking about. I'm saying the headache and working through a claim process with another adhesive is just, with an adhesive that is not the manufacturer's recommended adhesive, is just a headache. It's not that they can force you into it, because I think that has been fought multiple times. The adhesive manufacturer, whoever you bought it from, a lot of times will come to bat for you, at least from that aspect. Now, whether or not it's installed correctly, that's a whole different deal. But from the aspect of whether you can use their adhesive for that product or not, your adhesive manufacturer will go to bat for you. However, it's just the nasty fight that I was talking about that I try to avoid by just using their adhesive.
Yeah, and to address Kevin's question, to clarify in case something I said I came out wrong, what we were talking about was not that the manufacturer, let's say Armstrong or Tarkett, they wouldn't insist that somebody use an adhesive that wasn't branded Armstrong or Tech. So if it's an Armstrong floor, Armstrong is going to say use an Armstrong branded adhesive. This adhesive goes with this product. Tarkett will say this adhesive goes with this product. If you use them correctly, you will be fine. We will stand behind it. What I was referring to is that sometimes the installer may be comfortable with Sika or Henry's from Ardex or Mape or whatever reputable brand of adhesive they use on all their jobs day in and day out. And they may want to bring that adhesive onto a project with, let's say, an Armstrong floor, a Tarkett floor, some competitive product floor. Before you would do that, I would always make sure that that manufacturer is comfortable, even with a reputable brand that is not their own, before you install, particularly something large where there's an exposure. So to the extent that I didn't explain that correctly, hopefully that clarifies it.
Yeah, I think we all know that the flooring manufacturers don't always make the adhesives, and very rarely. make their own adhesive. But whether or not you go outside that, getting their sign off is what you're saying. Like, no matter what adhesive you're using, as long as it's a reputable brand, getting a sign off from your manufacturer is just one more. It's a little extra effort ahead of time, but man, can it save you some headache in the
Right. It's
future?
better to do it ahead of time than to do it in the claims process, because then you're scrambling for information, right?
Yeah. And if it's a big project, you might need to have you might need to have a lot of people signing off on that if you're gonna, really want to make sure that everyone's comfortable. So again, what we see I mean, we measure the amount of time that the branded adhesive is used, and it's not used as often as we would like to see. And whenever there's a claim, that's one of the first things we worry about, right? Because um, if a supplier's adhesive wasn't used, they're going to justifiably have questions, and then that's starts to be uncomfortable, right away.
Well, do you guys get asked all the time, Daniel? Because we get asked almost every order, where's your adhesive? If we are not ordering the adhesive. Oftentimes we're not ordering the adhesive when we order the product because
you already have some from in
we
stock
either
or
have
something.
it or it's the project itself isn't gonna, like, we're not gonna be on the project
Right.
installing, but we want to get it in house. But I don't want my adhesive sitting on the shelf getting old,
Right.
waiting 6 months for the
Right.
project to start.
Well,
So I
sometimes
buy
over a
the
year, right? Because you're
yeah.
like, I don't
So
want
I'll buy
this
the
has a
adhesive.
1 year shelf life. I'm not going to wait that year
Yeah.
with it on the shelf.
Yeah. So but I get that question almost every time I order from one of the manufacturers. Not usually if it's a distributed product, but if it's a manufactured product, uh, or manufacturers, like a Nora or a Eco Surfaces or a Shaw or a Pat Crep, like you're buying direct from the manufacturer. The they've put my orders on hold because I didn't order the adhesive, and I'm like, I got to send them an email saying we're not ordering adhesive until we're closer to the project.
Right.
And there's other reasons to do it. On really small jobs, I know some certain adhesives that'll work just as good for certain rubber floors, and I don't want to use your adhesive. I want to use this one that is I've put plenty of this product down with. And so there is sometimes when it's okay to have that fight, but in general, I find that the manufacturers almost like they'll stop you. Do you guys have that happen
only
when you
with
guys
certain
order?
manufacturers like Technoflor, right? Technoflor would come back and be like, hey, you're not ordering any adhesive. We're not going to sell you this without adhesive. And I'm like, guys, I just did this phase of this project and I still have this much adhesive left. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. That was only like 3 months ago. So you're good.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So
good that
there's
they're
a big
doing that.
push. I guess the point is there's a big push from the manufacturers to use their product. And Scott pointed out why. I mean, they have done the testing. And of course, it's not like unless you're going to do a long-term test, and a 24-hour bond test is not a true test of whether or
Right.
not it's going to stay, from the aspect of if it's the right adhesive or not.
Kevin just says that
24-hour bond tests
they're
are good
losing money when you're not using their adhesive because their compatibility doesn't necessarily mean it's the best adhesive. It just means that it'll work with it. But
There's a couple.
Yeah,
different
I
ways to
don't
look
know.
at that. I would say I am playing it safe by using the adhesive that is recommended by the manufacturer, so that way the warranties are covered. If it proves to not be compatible and doesn't perform, then I want that to be their fault, not mine.
Yeah. Well, we got down.
I have
Go ahead, Scott.
an example from earlier in my career. There's a national customer all over, there are locations all over the country. They dictated that the manufacturer's entire system be used. Someone cut a corner and didn't use the recommended patch and adhesive system. There was a failure, and the operations people at this national end user buried the installers. I mean, the installation company ate all those floors because they did, and it was like no, because it was in the contract that, so that's a little bit of a different example because the customer was requiring it. But the reason the customer was requiring it because it was, if they had a problem, they were going to bypass everybody. They were going to bypass the installation firm, us.
Yep.
They were going to go right to the manufacturer and say, hey, this was done by the book, fixed, you're dealing with getting this fixed. And once that equation didn't exist, so I'd say you got, Kevin's point may be valid, right? That somebody may make a superior product and the manufacturer is compatible, but the manufacturer has done the testing or standing by. So like I said, in Kevin's example, if there's a superior, ask the supplier to sign off on it. They may do it. I mean, I've seen them do that. I've seen them do that, but you've got to do that way ahead of time because there's a process involved. You can't wait until it's ready. The job's ready to go. It's never going to happen. So
I'm going to do a time check here just super quick. Are you okay to go over a little bit, Scott?
I am. If you guys are, I know Daniel wanted to talk about career opportunities and so on. So I wanted to make sure we had time for. I'm happy to.
Yeah. So
okay,
awesome. I just want to leave.
I got a couple
that
minutes actually. I got to
conversation.
drop off my son's football gear because he left it in my truck today, and they moved practice up.
Family first.
So just the, to end this one, we're not saying only use this. If you're comfortable with something, by all means, if you want to use that, just get an okay before you do, right? Because they are, like Kevin works with Robert's QEP, and so there's systems that people have. We use a lot of Utseen, and if you build that system, if you just look at the hard tile aspect, if you're using one system all the way through, you get a way better warranty than if you're piecing things together, and it's kind of like the same thing. So
that's right. You're right.
We're not saying don't use what you want to use, just get an
just
okay
be aware.
before you do it.
Well, there's a reason everybody has that term. Everybody calls their system a system, right? Well, we have a system for that. And if one individual, one manufacturer was better at making an entire system, then we'd be installing Roberts from subfloor, substrate prep all the way through to the finished product, right? They would have hold on the entire thing. Unfortunately, different manufacturers are better at creating different systems, and I'm okay.
Well, there's
with that.
competitors out there for a reason.
Yes.
Nobody's ever going to be in that position because someone's going to say, hey, this is a one-man show marketplace. We need to smart people are always going to create competition. I think that the overarching thing that Daniel was closing out with is just be aware, like Scott said, use your head and know that there's risk involved. And so if you're going to go with a different adhesive, follow the guidelines in it that have been laid out in this podcast and just ask. It doesn't harm anybody to just ask for permission and then get the blessing and then go forward. Just trying to save you guys some major headaches in the future. And I've went through them. Gone are the days of putting broadloom down with Parabon, adhesive. Like there's adhesive for just about anything, So go ahead, Daniel. You had some other stuff we were going to work into here.
Yeah, Kevin just says, search up the system warranties, and 100%. Absolutely. I just, Scott works with a distributor, and we always talk about what can you do as an installer once you're done on your knees. So I just wanted to kind of touch on, any opportunities that he sees other than installing for the installers that are, I don't know, injured, they're just over it, whatever, as a
body
career
can't
path.
handle it anymore, right?
Right. Yeah. So, there's a host of opportunities within the industry, both at the distribution and manufacturing level. I would assume at retail, I have less experience there, but someone that has installed just look at the conversations, today. The three of you gentlemen vastly outclassed me with your technical knowledge because you've been on job sites, the way the world works, you understand the products and how they work together and so on. So that experience and that skill and having done it yourself is invaluable to manufacturers and distributors for roles such as technical salespeople, regional representatives. And so we have several salespeople that at some point in their career worked as flooring installers and were outstanding flooring installers. And they reached a point where that's not what they wanted to focus on. They wanted something different. and they went into outside field sales. And so the value that someone with that background can bring to a retailer, because there's a wide degree of sophistication levels when it comes to technical, when people are operating a flooring store, and to have somebody that can go in, and when you're selling a product, it's easy to sell a product when there's never a problem, right? When someone has a question, when something's going wrong on a job site, and that distributor salesman or that manufacturer representative can, on a phone call, with a video or with some sort of email follow, provide a solution to bail somebody out of like a jam where they're stuck. I mean, that is invaluable, because you're helping your client, solve a problem and make money or not lose money. And so, that's a path for sure. Related is, a lot of distributors operate via a branch system where they'll have folks at a counter that are selling the product. People that have installation backgrounds are invaluable. I mean, they're tremendous. And if you have language skills, if you're multilingual, bilingual, multilingual, you're in huge demand to fill that role, because you're able to provide solutions to people that are coming in often day of, or it's Friday, I'm doing this work on the weekend, or I'm going to be doing this work next week. They want someone that they could talk to, know, see, and trust, to help them. It's one thing to have the product, but here's the right product to use for this. Here's the right product to use for that. And so there's a variety of opportunities there, and people are looking for that all the time. I have peers that are desperate.
I think distributors miss that a little bit. The value of counter knowledge, like somebody who really knows their stuff at a counter. We had a distributor here that I went to all the time when I installed, because they had a guy that was an old installer that was absolutely fantastic at working through issues. Sometimes just go have coffee with him on Friday morning and talk through, some complications.
Yeah. And so, I mean, folks are always looking for talent like that, to help them. The challenge, of course, is if you live in Chicago and I'm looking for somebody in South Dakota, then you have to make a choice, because somebody may not be looking for a particular skill set at a particular time. But I would submit that there's always people looking, right? And so if there's someone that is focusing their career on installing today, and they see that at some point down the road, that may not be what they want to continue doing, what I would encourage them to do is to use their contacts, to use their network, to find ways to be introduced to manufacturers, distributors, large retailers, for example, that are going to have positions that are going to be opening up, or you're going to be expanding. I'm going to need somebody. If the business knows that in 2 or 3 years, when I'm going to be growing or making this move, Daniel is looking to do X, Y, and Z, there could be a runway, from the installation focused career to a related career where, maybe there's less stress on the body, or there's a different challenge that someone wants to pursue. And that's what I would encourage folks to do is, build the network, build the contacts now. And then as your plans change, you can just let your contacts know, and they'll come to you with positions. I mean, there's a shortage of skill out there, both to install and then to explain to people how to install.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Can I recap some of the headliners? LVT is not the cure-all for all flooring. SBC. Laminate's making a comeback. Hardwood is resurging. I heard that from the NWFA as well. And
solid hardwood too. I mean, solid hardwood.
And natural wood. Yeah, solid hardwood. I did write that one.
Solid hardwood's coming back too, which is interesting.
So
I love it because I had hardwood in my house, and one of the great things was just it is a permanent deal. One thing that, if you're a homeowner out there watching this, tile and hardwood in particular, actually adds value to your home. Like it increases the value of your home. Whereas LVT carpet, I don't care if you have $200 a yard carpet in your house, it does not add a stitch of value to your home. Same with your LVPs and your floaters. I don't care how expensive your laminate floor is, it is not going to add value. That's just a side note.
Now,
So
I do got to take
hardwood's
off in a
making a
second.
comeback.
I got to take off in a second, but I wanted to add to what your little recap there. With and this is going to be directed to you, Scott, is with the items that are trending and everything that we're talking about, and the differences in some of the hard surface as far as natural wood and SPCs, WPCs, and laminate. What products are you finding that are trending and becoming more popular that maybe the installers are in the audience can better prepare themselves for the next year or two as far as brushing
Like
their
shortfalls
knowledge?
in the skill that for
like if
resurging product. It'd be like if
yeah
broadloom made a comeback in the commercial world. We are in trouble because I got like one broadloom guy left.
yeah. What can they do to better prepare themselves for what's trending in the near future?
Yeah.
Great
So
question, Jose.
I alluded to the solid hardwood. It's caught us, it's a pleasant surprise for us. That's trending back. I think that's associated with a few things. I mean, vintage, right? There's vintage is hot across many industries. So, just making sure that folks are up to speed on that. If people have particular skill sets, we're looking at getting involved in unfinished hardwood flooring installation. That continues to be a very robust and viable area. I was speaking about pre-finished solid coming back being a surprise, but those skill sets I think are going to be in demand, and so folks were looking in that direction. On the tile side, I would imagine, Jose, Daniel, you guys are seeing this. There's large format tile that requires a skill set that is not basic. You damage that. I mean, it's expensive in and of itself. So, just kind of understanding that, having the proper tools, and so forth, if that's a space that one's in, because the designers are going to continue to push that trend for larger format. That's hot right now as well.
Are you seeing the panels take off, continue to grow as well? The gauge porcelain panels, or because they've gotten to where they're building larger, actual, 3/8 porcelain and 3 foot by 5 foot actual tile, or they have 5 foot by 10 foot panels. I mean, we've installed a fair amount of that. Are the gauge panels?
I see it being pushed everywhere, Paul, but we don't play heavily in that space, so I don't want to speak out of ignorance. I mean, I see it being marketed heavily, so usually that's associated with some demand, but sometimes it's associated with just creating the demand in the first place. So I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, those large tiles, the tile and the panels. I mean, we were talking, just to continue addressing what you brought up, Jose. Scott's saying there's a increase in wood and hardwood, solid hardwood in particular. So get with the NWFA. If you are a installer out there and you want to add another skill set, make sure you're starting with proper industry standard training. Get with the NWFA. Go to some of their stuff. They hold courses. If you're getting into the larger panels, you got to be trained on that stuff. I'm telling you, it will. A panel can cost a couple $1,000, and you break one, and guess who's getting charged for it? It's going to be the installer. So you got to know how to handle them properly, have the proper tools to handle them. Even larger format tile, you can't just lug those things around like you could a 24 by 24. You need suction cups, and there's a lot of things that you can do. Larger snapping boards and things of that nature from Ruby and Sigma. It's all out there, but you got to get educated. So NTCA for tile, the CTEF for tile. Get with the NWFA for hardwood, get with NAFCT for your vinyls. When you start to do that and you build a foundation of understanding the products and a good educational foundation, you have a much higher degree for success.
And the other thing I would mention is sheet goods. Commercial sheet flooring. is
Man.
invaluable. It's in high demand. There are not enough folks that have that expertise. And I've yet to see an operating room that is not going to have a flash coved commercial sheet floor. And
Ain't gonna happen.
healthcare is huge, guys. Is it's going to grow, and it's a
Yeah.
profit center. And for the institutions, but you need qualified, skilled people to put that stuff in. And so if someone is considering getting trained and focused, that is an area where you could have a lot of stable employment
I gotta go.
if you have commercial sheet expertise.
Yeah, you will be in demand. I've said this before on the podcast, but when I was installing carpet, was paying out like $2.50 a yard, maybe $3 a yard commercially, back in '99. Today, it pays out to subs out of commercial shops around here somewhere between $3.50 and $4. Now it's carpet tile, so it's a hell of a lot easier than the stuff I was putting in for $2.50, big broadloom stuff. But the point is, it hasn't increased as much. Tile has increased a little more, but I'll tell you, I got paid $6 a yard to install commercial sheet vinyl back then. We're almost triple that. So commercial sheet, and we are triple on the weld. It's damn near triple on the coving. We pay by a lot of shops around here, but we particularly pay by each segment. So the vinyl pays this much, then each lineal foot of cove pays this much, and each lineal foot of welding pays this much to our subs. In our in-house guys, it's indifferent, our W-2 employee guys. But for our subs, that has paid out, that has increased greatly because of this demand you're talking about. And there's just so few of us. So don't forget, if you're watching this, you want to learn some sheet vinyl expertise, you got to get down to America's Floor Source in October 20th through 24th. And Daniel, you're going to be the trainer there, aren't you?
I am going to be the trainer there, yeah. And we talked about non-PVC flooring earlier. It's just one of those things where installers think that they can treat it like the sheet vinyl that they've been installing it for years, but things change, compositions change, adhesive changes. It's all different technologies. So now we're kind of at that turning point where we were already in need of installers, and now things are changing to the point where a non-PVC is being installed like a linoleum or a rubber. So it's kind of a specialty thing, even more than a vinyl. So you want to get trained, so that way you're not showing up to these jobs and you don't even do vinyl, and now you're doing something that's even more difficult than a vinyl would be. So just expand your
It's a
knowledge
real
on
craft.
things.
It's one of my favorite things to install, just because it was so much in demand. At the end of my install career, that's what I really wanted to learn and get good at. And so I encourage any installer who's good with your hands that you can learn this stuff. It's not as scary. I think sheet vinyl, the commercial sheet vinyl flash cove heat weld stuff, has this stigma of fear around it a little bit. So if you are good with your good with your hands and you understand floor prep and stuff, you're about halfway there. Get to some courses. This one that Daniel's putting on, I guarantee is going to be a banger. So it's worth your time and effort and money to go get trained. You'll make the money back very quickly if you get trained properly.
Yeah. And
well, Scott, thanks for hanging with us so much longer. We went over a little bit here, so thanks for hanging in there. Super appreciate the conversation. And a final mention for our sponsors today: Divergent Adhesives and the NAFCT. We've mentioned them multiple times. Great companies. NAFCT is putting on this training in October down in Columbus, Ohio. So make sure you get down to that. Reach out to Daniel. Scan the QR code, get in touch with us, and we'll get you at that training. So want to thank all of our audience for the comments. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, but we were deep in conversation. And give us a thumbs up. Check us out on on YouTube. Make sure to interact with us on our socials. And we super appreciate you guys. You're why we do it. Scott, thank you so much for joining us today. And hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you.
And if you guys aren't getting stuff from Floorstar and you're able to, make sure you're getting with your local rep, so that way you can. I mean, we were at your guys' warehouse not too long ago. It's crazy organized in there. I don't know how you do it.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys. So we will catch you guys next week. And until then, we'll see.